President Schwartz, milí Jiří, faculty, families, most importantly, the graduating class of 2026. What a gorgeous day and what a gorgeous space here. Just look around. This is probably the last time in your professional life that everyone in this room will put his or her phone away out of respect for what you have accomplished. Enjoy it. By next week, people will be scrolling through your job application while half watching Netflix, and they will feel they are giving you their full attention. That's actually not a joke. That is the world you are walking into. And it's precisely why I want to talk about decision-making under uncertainty. Because decisions made by distracted people with incomplete information, under pressure, on the basis of a 2-minute scroll, will increasingly be the context in which your fate gets decided. So the question now is, what are you going to do about this? Allow me a bit of a personal reflection. In November 1989, I was roughly your age. I was a student at Charles University, and I was also a member of the student strike committee, which organized this strike against the communist regime that eventually grew into the Velvet Revolution. We were making consequential decisions daily with no information, no precedent, and no idea how it would end. What I remember most isn't any particular call we made, it's how certain everyone, including me, felt about those decisions. Nobody warns you about that. Certainty is a feeling, not a compass. 60 years ago, this country was a very, very different place. If you were here 60 years ago, you would not recognize Prague as it is today. Very beautiful, very thriving, and very seductive. 60 years ago, this country was a satellite state inside an empire that did not care what its citizens thought. In 1968, Soviet tanks rolled into Prague to end a political experiment that had lasted only 8 months. People who demonstrated against the occupation were expelled from universities, fired from their jobs, forced to work as boiler room operators and window washers for the next 20 years. The certainty of the regime looked to everyone inside it like permanence. Then came 1989. As I said, this is already the time I remember. That was the time when Jiří actually taught me at Charles University. So now we know about the date, right? Sometime in 1900s. Several 100,000 people gathered in the city center. They jingled their keys, and within weeks, a government that had looked immovable the previous spring did not exist. A playwright who'd been in and out of prison became president of the country that imprisoned him only a few months ago. This happened in this city inside the lifetime of people sitting in this room. Then Czechoslovakia split. 2 countries negotiated out of a federation with no referendum and no violence, by the standards of how countries normally split apart, that's close to a miracle. Then NATO, then European Union, then a pandemic nobody planned for, a war on this continent that most people in this room were taught belonged to history books, and subsequently an energy crisis that had Czech households doing arithmetic on their gas bills that their parents never had to do. Every single one of those moments was, to the people living through them, unprecedented. Nobody in 1988 believed the regime would fall the next year. Yeah, I know lots of people who now say, of course, communism would fall. I knew that. Do not believe them. That was not the feeling we had in 1988. Nobody in early 1992 knew the Federation would split peacefully. Nobody in February 2022 thought they would be recalculating their heating budget by October. And yet decisions got made. Lives got built. People, roughly your age, at the time, finished their degrees, raised families, started companies, made mistakes, and recovered from most of them. Uncertainty did not pause for anyone to feel ready. It never does. That's not a flaw in the system, that is the system. Three things I'd leave you with, and I'll keep to the three, because a speech with more than 3 pieces of advice is a list, and lists are for shopping. First, trust the people closer to the problem than you are. The most expensive decisions I have watched go wrong were made by someone in a comfortable office, far from the actual mess, who was certain they understood it better than the people standing in it. Proximity beats seniority most of the time. Second, decide at the speed the situation actually requires, not the speed your anxiety demands. Anxiety wants you to decide immediately. You really want to make the discomfort stop. Most real decisions can survive a day, a week, a conversation with someone who will tell you the truth rather than what you actually want to hear. So find those people now. Well, while you can still do that, choose them freely, right? Third, being wrong is information, period. Being wrong is information. It is not a verdict on your character. The temptation after a bad call is either to pretend it didn't happen, I've done that, or to let it define you for the next decade. I was fortunately spared from that one. But both are a waste of a perfectly good lesson. The people I most respect aren't the ones who are rarely wrong. They are the ones who are wrong efficiently. They notice quickly, say so out loud, and update without a 6-month identity crisis. You are really lucky to be graduating from this school. You don't even know how lucky you are. You are graduating from a university that, by design, asked you to live between languages and systems and assumptions. Most people spend their entire lives inside one framework, mistaking it for the only possible one. You had to negotiate the gap between frameworks since you arrived here. That's exactly the skill I'm describing, making decisions with incomplete, sometimes contradictory information, and doing it anyway in a language that might not even have been your first. And about those phones, the people scrolling through your CV while half watching Netflix, they are not your future. They are just the noise in front of it. The decisions that will actually shape what you become won't be made in 2-minute scrolls. They will be made by you, in rooms that require your full attention. Be the person who shows up with it. Congratulations to the class of 2026.